I think the thing about ASEAN is always, it's more about the process than it is about the actual agreement that comes out of it. I think the fact that they've agreed to a framework is significant, but we don't know what that means yet. And I think partly this will be determined by kind of the great powers, how China wants to deal with these issues along with ASEAN, and how ASEAN is going to kind of fit within that broader regional framework in East Asia, because we're still uncertain on that.
So it's a step, but does it seem like just a small step, that this is still going to be a lengthy process in your estimation?
Yeah, I think it is a lengthy process, and ASEAN is all about kind of formally and process-wise going forward. So it's a necessary but not a sufficient condition in my mind.
What about ASEAN itself moving forward? It seems like one of the criticisms I was reading here is that they tend to just talk and talk and talk. They don't accomplish a lot. So give me your sense of this ASEAN session. Are we seeing much in the way of accomplishments?
You know, I think one of the things about ASEAN is in this moment in time in which there's so much international uncertainty, actually process and having a talking shop is valuable. The fact that the United States is not doing TPP, for example, creates an opportunity for ASEAN. And I think this, kind of the first time after the U.S. election, after the Brexit vote, it means the ASEAN actually has a role to play here. And so while in the past you would have definitely leveled those criticisms, I actually think this is a pretty significant meeting, and how ASEAN is being courted by all the powers in the region is going to be very important to watch.
Give me your sense of how that plays out moving forward.
I think the way this plays out is basically the way ASEAN decides to either take sides or continue its neutrality, where it basically says, look, we're not going to do anything unless we can all agree on something, means that ASEAN will play a more critical role now than it ever has in the past, because it means that ASEAN has to be united on everything, whether it's a dispute with China on certain issues with its member states, or whether it's about the U.S. role in the region or what's going on with Japan. ASEAN is going to play a larger role because it's a regional grouping that continues to have an important voice, because they stick together and they don't kind of break off based on member-specific organizations.
Their voice on globalization. You see the United States pulling back. You see with the UK what's happened there with the Brexit. Give me your sense about that.
I do think that ASEAN is going to play a bigger role because of the fact that you have big personalities like Trump and like things going on with Russia. And I think that ASEAN's role in Southeast Asia, it's in a dynamic, important region. It's got the most important countries right there between disputes between the U.S. and China and Japan and other major players like Vietnam or the Philippines. So I do think simply because of geography and where it's located, it's going to be an important player. And it's not just a player, it's the forum. So it's the process. The very things you can criticize ASEAN for not taking major stands on, that's where everybody's going to come to compete and going to be trying to play that role.